You know, I've built some pretty weird stuff in my day, but I think this one takes the cake. It's no joke, it's just weird. Welcome back to the Scale Builders Guild. Thanks again for watching. It's episode 22 of What's on the Bench Weekly. And if you're not familiar with this show, it's where I take you through all the projects that are on my bench. Sometimes I go into the archives and pull something out that maybe you haven't seen before or haven't seen on the channel before. In this case, it's something that's been on the channel, but something you may not have seen, and that is this Toyota Land Cruiser half-track. There's a lot of quirky things going on here, and this was a very fun and challenging build, and I'll tell you why. I mean, sure, it's already challenging because it's half truck, half tank, but it's really much more than that. This truck was originally built in 2017, so started in 2016, but finished in 2017 for Axialfest. And if you are at all familiar with Axialfest, back then, the trucks that people brought to Axialfest were very, very carefully monitored by the people who were running the event. It had to be an axial-based vehicle, meaning it had to have an axial transmission, had to have an axial set of axles, had to have axial frame rails. And those things were pretty commonly checked out at tech. As long as it was custom and used those components, you could go and drive your truck at Axialfest. And people would always say, can I bring my Red Cat? Or could I bring my Team Associated? It's like, no, it's Axialfest. Bring an axial truck. So that's what I did. Believe it or not, the undercarriage of this truck, this tank, this half-track, is all axial running gear. And I'll take some of it apart so you can see that. But let's take a look underneath real quick, because that's easy to do. It's loaded with sand. As you can see, an old SCX-10 front axle. It is a 3-link. Huh, I forgot all about this. I did a 3-link with a panhard bar somewhere. Chassis mounted servo using GCM Racing's servo mount. Really nice tight little design that they came up with there and used in a lot of different trucks. It's you can see the axial skid here. It's got the GCM front transmission mount, which moves the motor and the transmission up to the front of the truck, leaving you a lot of flat space on the skid so you can do a full interior like this truck has. There is a transfer case, a GCM transfer case as well. So far you can see there's also axial frame rails here, just a regular set of SCX-10 frame rails and shock hoops and all this sort of normal stuff that you would expect. The difference being, of course, that GCM front transmission mount and transfer case. Still totally legal, 100%. Now you're looking back here and you're saying, well, hold on a second. Those look like tank tracks. Where's the rear axle that would make this an axial truck? It's underneath the bed, and we'll look at that in a second. But that's the majority of the front. The back was originally a Henglong M1 tank, or a Sherman. I think it may have been a Sherman. I can't remember exactly. It's been a long time since it was what it used to be. I upgraded the drive line, so we've got metal tracks, and we've also got, you know what, I'll flip this around so we get a better look at it. Now the back of the truck, it's the tracked portion of it, and we've got a nice set of metal upgraded wheels here. These came all the way from Australia. I'm not sure why or if they needed to, but that's where I found them, so I bought them there. The tracks were an upgrade, of course, and most Henglong tanks don't have just 5 wheels. They actually have like 7. So I had to section this whole Henglong back part of the tank to make it fit and scale out properly for a half-track. Otherwise, it would be way too long and look absolutely more ridiculous than it already does. Still looks pretty ridiculous, I must say. This was all scratch built. The cab itself was chopped. It's an RC 4-wheel drive cruiser body. It was chopped to make it a single cab, so there's no back end. Had to redo the roof contouring, and then I weathered the whole thing using a bunch of different techniques. which I've covered in a lot of videos, so I'll make sure to link to some weathering videos right there. Now you're saying to yourself, well, hold on, I get that this part from here forward is all axial, but how is this legal? Well, I'll take the top off and we'll take another good look at this. This top, actually, it's all like, it's crusty and molded this way using Mod Podge to kind of keep everything in place. This was sewn by Rebecca. There's a metal cage underneath that I brazed together, and it's designed to come off quite easily so you can get at the electronics underneath, or at least the mechanicals anyway. Most of the electronics are up front, and I'll show you those in a second. But this lifts off very easily, and there's some accessories in there too. I made a big oil can, and there's some dynamite. You can see that. There you go. There's some dynamite in there, which was kind of fun to make. And then there is the whole back here is used for storage. I put some extra tank tracks in there, but it is wood and styrene. A lot of scratch building going on here. This whole back half was scratch built from styrene. And if we get a chance, I think this still pulls out. Yeah, the wood pulls out here, so you can get a look at how everything kind of centers down the center here, and you can see that there's a very long drive shaft that goes to the rear here, and you sort of lose what's happening there. So we'll take the whole back off and we'll get an idea of what's going on back there and how I made this work. Now it's kind of a mess. It was never really designed to come apart once it was put together, but the best I can do is sort of show you this look and maybe tilt it a little bit so you get a look back there. But there is another SCX10 axle that drives the rear sprockets. And how I made this work, it's actually got the differentials in there. And this was an option. I think most AX10s at the very beginning came unlocked. Their diffs were unlocked and both wheels spun independently of each other. I was able to get all of those parts in there and kind of hack together a differential, because in real life, half tracks functioned just like a regular automobile. They did have a differential rear, so you could just drive it like a normal person driving a truck. They didn't want to have to train people to drive half tracks. This was how they did it. So it actually does function like a real life half track, which I think is pretty amazing. The axial frame rails bolt into the existing hang-long sectioned tank body or chassis underneath. There was a smoke machine in there. It no longer functions, probably because I ran it on 3S and blew it up. There is a whole slew of lights throughout this truck. There is a sound unit that still works. That is right there. As you can see, that's the speaker for it. All the electronics are up in the front. And yeah, that's sort of how this whole thing comes together. It was an engineering feat for me at the time, and definitely a hack together craft project that I would do entirely differently if I was doing it now. But I am still very happy with the end result. I think it looks pretty darn cool. Let me reassemble it, and then we'll get a good look at the front half and the electronics that go in there. Okay, and to get at all the electronics, it's very easy. You just lift the hood off. I actually modified this slightly to have these little metal inserts and some magnets on either side to help keep it in place, because this thing does rattle around quite a bit. Underneath you can see, oh, it is heavy as well. There's the GCM front transmission mount. It's powered by a Tekin heavy-duty 35-turn brushed motor and good old FXR ESC. Old-timey stuff for sure. 2017 top of the line though. This was an inline Deans to power your sound unit, which I've disconnected because it's super annoying and loud. But for the purposes of this video, I think we'll power it up with that, because why not, right? All right, let's hope it still drives, because I have not driven it in a long time. Okay, so as you can see, fully functional light kit. I got a rotating caution light on the roof that I added. It does have brake lights and reverse lights and the whole deal. and has a sound kit that works pretty well too. Let's fire that up. Nice diesel noise. Of course, it's way too big for the bench. Let's just do some spinning. And there you go. I couldn't remember how long it takes to go from idle to shut off, but there you go. Fully functional half track of all the things you could build. Why not a one-off Toyota-based half track, right? Anyway, very fun build. Definitely one that is well documented on the forum, and I definitely suggest you go check that out. The forum is an excellent place to learn things and to see how builds like this came together that in only a forum could you do. Not only are most of my builds very well documented there, but there are hundreds, maybe even thousands of other really spectacular builds, all worthy of you spending some time and reading through them. You may learn a thing or two, so I will definitely put links down below so you can check all of that out. A history lesson today, 2017, this was 5 years ago that I built this, and to me is one of those trucks that I probably will never sell because it's just so awesome. I absolutely love this thing. And yeah, I think that's going to do it for this episode of What's on the Bench. Thank you so much for watching, and of course we will see you again next week.